Welcome everybody. My name is Bianca Guerrero. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm so excited to be here. Before we begin, I'd like to note that ASL interpretation is available and would like to say thank you to Nikki Macias. I've been organizing in New York City. I've been organizing in New York City for progressive causes and insurgent campaigns. It's what I do on and off the clock. As an organizer who has fought for the rights and the representation of working class New Yorkers across the city and the state, I know the blood, sweat, and tears that it takes to topple incumbents and elect a true progressive who puts their district and not their donors first. I see in Rana the aspirations of our movement realized, and I know that she will fight for New Yorkers of every stripe to bring housing justice, gender justice, Medicare for all, and a Green New Deal to our communities. We met a few years ago via the Truman Scholarship. Rana is 100% dedicated to serving the people. She's been fighting for New York 12 her entire life, literally. She is the only candidate I know that has a black belt in martial arts. She takes the hardship that she's faced, racism, gentrification, and housing insecurity, and uses it to organize for a better future, from founding Malikah as a teenager to fundraising for undocumented workers during this pandemic. She's a success story of this district, but her should be the rule and not the exception. I'm thrilled Rana is running for Congress because she is the leader that this district desperately needs. After the worst year in recent history, we need members of Congress who will challenge the status quo and deliver. This district needs a new vision for its future, not the same old leadership that has failed us time and time again. Rana won't show up only when it's convenient. She'll fight for us every day, day in and day out, like she's done her entire life. You don't have to take it from me. Today, you'll hear from a lot of folks who know Rana best. It's my pleasure to introduce Thenjiwe McHarris. Thenjiwe is Rana's mentor and an activist within the Black Lives Matter movement.
Hi, everyone. My name is Thenjiwe, and I am an organizer and activist, and I have known Rana since her freshman year of high school. And I can't tell you how moved, how honored I am to talk about this very special, this very inspiring human being. I have worked with movement leaders around the world for social justice, for human rights, with movements who are committed to building a world where millions don't have to suffer from poverty, from brutality, from injustice, a world that is deserving of us. Whether you are a Black girl in Detroit whose communities are over-policed, or a young person whose school system has failed them over and over and over again. And in my work, I have never met anyone as passionate, as committed, and as inspirational as Rana. I've had the true honor of watching her grow for more than 15 years now. And through those years, I have witnessed her become this powerful, visionary leader our communities deserve. From working to teaching women and girls how to defend themselves, to fighting for her community and challenging systems and structures that force people out of their homes, unable to feed their families and protect their children. Rana is the type of leader who understands that the real fight starts at home, with your community, with those who you have witnessed firsthand not be given the respect that they deserve, the protection that is their right. This is why I am so inspired by her run for office. And I often don't get this inspired. We need leaders like Rana, young, courageous, visionary, loving, heart-centered leaders who know that the only way we change the world is if we start where we live, brick by brick, demanding that our communities get the quality housing, education, healthcare they need. They have always needed. And even more than that, a leader who understands that their true work is to serve the people. With leaders like Rana and others like her, I believe that we will not only be able to advance important policy victories, but over time, we can change the way this country is governed. If you learn anything from me about Rana, I hope you learn this. She loves her family. She loves her community. She will not just fight for you, but she will never give up. Even when it gets hard, she won't stop listening. She won't stop growing. She is the type of humble, loving, committed, and fierce leader all of our communities deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Thenjiwe. Next up is Alice Liu. Alice is a Chinatown-based activist, small business owner, and Malikah organizer. Alice?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alice, and I am a Chinatown resident, small business owner, and community activist in the Chinatown Lower East Side space. I met Rana back in 2019 when I was attending a women's leadership and community organizing training that Malikah had hosted. Rana had founded Malikah back when she was in high school after experiencing a hate crime. She channeled that hate and violence that she had experienced into creating a safe and empowering space for women, people of color, and the LGBTQ community. Grassroots organizing is in Rana's blood. When she was thinking about running, she reached out to me because she wanted to make sure that my community is represented and that our needs are heard, because running for Congress was not about her. It was about making sure that our people's problems finally get addressed on that congressional floor. The commitment to holding space for our long ignored voices and our concern is something that politicians fueled by big money has failed to do for us. Rana as a congresswoman means fighting for women, people of color, working and lower class communities who've always struggled for a seat at that table. It means bringing the grassroots work that she has been doing since she was in high school to the level of enacting policy change. And that's why I'm so honored to be supporting my role model, friend, and mentor, Rana Abdelhamid, for 12th Congressional District.
Thank you, Alice, for your words from the heart. Now, everyone, please join me in welcoming New York City Council Member Brad Lander.
Thank you so much. So before I talk about Rana, I do want to just first give a giant shout out to Bianca, who's been busy organizing the fight for excluded workers and that amazing $2 billion excluded worker fund, supporting the women in their incredible hunger strike. So Bianca, props to you. That was some amazing organizing, and it's great to already be in a next campaign for justice with you. I am thrilled to be here today to endorse Rana Abdelhamid as she announces her campaign for Congress. I met Rana through Malikah as well, as you've heard from some other people. So a couple of years ago in my district, a group of Muslim young women organized through our participatory budgeting process. We do a thing in the district and in some other parts of the city called participatory budgeting, where people can come up with an idea, develop it, put it forward, put it on a ballot, people in the district vote, and those projects that get the most votes get the funding. Actually, today is the final day to vote in our 10th year of participatory budgeting. But a couple of years ago, not long after the election of Donald Trump, with the rise of Islamophobia and xenophobia in the district, a group of Muslim young women, largely Bangladeshi, who live in Kensington in Brooklyn, gathered together when participatory budgeting was an opportunity and said, you know what we need, council member and community? What we need is an opportunity to take some self-defense classes because we're worried about what could happen to us out on these streets, and to do it in an empowerment context so that we, as Muslim young women, can really take our place in this democracy, in this neighborhood, without fear and with full courage. And that seemed like an amazing idea that they had, but we did not know what organization they could partner with to develop this. And lo and behold, Shahana Hanif, who was the lead organizer for participatory budgeting, told us about Rana and about Malikah. And those young women were able to get together with Malikah and design a series of self-defense and empowerment trainings that got put on the ballot, that won, a majority of votes in our council district, and then got implemented over the next year. And I got to go to the very first session, and I'm glad there's no video because no one wants you saw Rana hitting that bag. She looks pretty good. You don't want the video of me trying to do any of the things that Malikah was teaching. But I will say that for the final session, for the graduation, which took place at a Bangladeshi restaurant in Kensington, it was the last time that my parents, that my mom and dad were in Brooklyn, and the looks on their faces when they saw these young women graduating with the confidence and power that they had built through their work with Malikah and participatory budgeting, I think it might be the proudest they've ever been of me, that we were able to provide a platform that made that happen. And through that work, I gained such enthusiasm for Malikah, and especially for Rana and her example. What a powerful way to have young women take power through grassroots democracy to demand justice and equity, to fight against racism and sexism, and to take their full place in building the inclusive multiracial democracy that is the only way forward for New York City and for our country as a whole. And so when I heard that Rana Abdelhamid was running for Congress to bring that idea of young women stepping up through our democracy to fight racism and sexism, to make sure we have a just recovery out of this crisis, to win the inclusive multiracial democracy that we all deserve, I wanted to be on the team from day one, and I'm delighted to say congratulations, Rana. We're so excited to be part of the team.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Councilmember Lander. Please join me in welcoming Alexandria Rojas, Executive Director of Justice Democrats.
Hey, everybody. Wow, I got to follow Councilman Lander there. That was a lot. That's great. But hello, everyone tuning in. I am so deeply excited, honored, and humbled to be here. My name is Alexandria Rojas, and I am the founding member and current executive director of Justice Democrats. For those of you that don't know, we're a grassroots organization dedicated to recruiting and electing the next generation of progressive working class candidates to run for Congress by recruiting local leaders nominated by their own community to challenge corporate-backed politicians, including Democratic incumbents. In 2018 and 2020, a few out of over 70 Justice Democrat candidates made it through. AOC, Jamal representing New York, Ayanna, Ilhan, Rashida, Corey, Marie, and other states. And though progressives have made gains, we still have so long to go. You'll hear from her in just a little bit, so I'm not going to say too much about her bio. But as a child of working class immigrants who grew up right here in Astoria, Queens, Rana Abdelhamid has dedicated her life to protecting her neighbors and community members when politicians have failed to act. She has spent her life, all 27 years, fighting tirelessly for her community against racism and economic insecurity, and we are so proud to support and go all in on Rana's campaign for progressive change. She is exactly the kind of Democrat we need in Congress right now. And today, for that reason, is so special. Right now, we're live streaming from here in Little Egypt, the heart of Rana and her family's community, and one of the hardest hit parts of New York by the pandemic and the economic crisis that followed. At the same time, Rana is launching a campaign that is going to be run from the bottom up to take on one of the wealthiest members of Congress who has been in office for over 3 decades, representing one of the most unequal districts in America. If New York is a tale of 2 cities, then New York 12 is a tale of 2 districts. And the current Representative Carolyn Maloney, has only served 1. And in New York's 12th, it faces one of the 10th highest levels of income inequality in the nation. And if it were a nation or a country, it would be the 9th highest in the world. Over her time in office, Representative Maloney has taken millions from corporate PACs, whether it be Wall Street, real estate developers, who profit off the suffering of working class New Yorkers, just like Rana and her family. She also supported the 1994 crime bill, along with Ray Kelly and racist policing practices like stop and frisk, and has even falsely claimed that vaccines are linked to autism. I could go on, but the time of stagnant leadership is over, and a new type of leader and a new kind of voter is rising up all throughout the country, but especially right here in New York. Those that don't hide from their problems, but run towards them, who understand the ultimate responsibility of leadership is to act with urgency this moment demands, not operate from a place of political convenience. This race is about centering our communities, the people that we love, and fighting for those we don't know yet, but who need someone to care. It will be a race filled with joy and hope and a fierce commitment to the progressive movement and priorities that we all represent. Rana is going to form a coalition of young people, of progressives, of communities of color, of immigrants, of small business owners, and working and middle-class New Yorkers who are hungering for representation that looks like them, that fights for them, and believes in them. This is the opportunity that we have in front of us. This is the kind of leader that we need in Congress. We need to support leaders who are willing to refuse to accept corporate PAC money and are funded by their community, who are going to fight for a just transition and the Green New Deal, who strongly support Medicare for all and will not waver, and who are always going to put their community and constituents first before playing politics with people's lives. The grassroots movement we've built at Justice Democrats has shocked the nation in 2 cycles right here in New York. And this is our biggest base of support. We know you're ready, and we're ready to prepare to do this all again here in New York's 12. It's time to usher in a new generation of progressive leadership into the Democratic Party. And this year, we're getting started here in New York with Rana Abdelhamid for Congress. Thank you so much and can't wait to keep going. Here you go, Bianca.
Lovely, 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 lovely. Thank you so much, Alex. Next up, we have a very, very special speaker. Please welcome Abdelrazek Abdelhamid, Rana's father. Woo!
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really very happy and excited to be here with you guys. As they represent me, my name is Abdelrazek Abdelhamid. My mom used to call me Rez as a nickname. I remember I came to United States in 1990. I landed at JFK, Queens. I lived with two roommates in Astoria, Queens, who were also from Egypt. I came here looking for better life and freedom. My sweetheart for me and my sweetheart. After 2 years, she joined me on my journey. Even since we got here, we worked so hard just to cover our expenses. I have worked as a delivery boy in Manhattan, and then as a sandwich man, then a tow truck driver, yellow cab driver, garage tender, you name it, I did it. I worked so hard to save some money. Eventually, I was able to save some money to open my own business. A market for my community, El Marwa Fresh Halal Meat Market. I remember my landlord used to be a beautiful old lady. We had a very good relationship. I felt like she was my mom. But when she was retired, a real estate developer bought the building. I started increasing my rent. I worked day and night, 7 days a week. But it wasn't enough. And eventually I lost my store. Rana, my oldest daughter, took this loss personally. She was our first child. When she was born, our life changed and became happier. We knew from day one that she was special. As immigrant parents, we had a plan for our kids to give her good education and encourage her to become a doctor. We were looking for future stability and decent life, not just for her, but for us. So we pushed her to this goal, but she had a different opinion, as always. She didn't just want to help our family, she wanted to help the whole community. And she wanted to do it at the source. She knows where is the problem. That is how she always thinking. That's always have beautiful and good vision. I remember when I lost my store in the neighborhood, she knew it was a bigger problem than just our family. She has always made a change. She started non-profit organization to make a change for young women in our community. She organizes fundraiser to make a change for people who are struggling. After college, she took a job at a good company because she had many expenses, student loans, and was helping support our family. And she doesn't want to put all that on my shoulder. That's why she took a job. We thought that's it. She made it to a decent life. That's what we were looking for. But again, that wasn't her goal. She still wanted to make more change. So she challenged us again, and we changed our minds again. And now she's running for Congress to make a change for all New Yorkers. I know she can do it because she is already changing our life. Here we go. We love you, Rana, and we are so proud of you.
Oh my God, so cute. All right. Thank you so much. We cannot imagine how proud you are today, Abdelrazek, and for good reason. Now it's time to hear from the candidate herself. Here's Rana.
Thank you all so much. I'm just so grateful for everyone's words and your stories and your commitment to this. I just feel really lucky today. I feel a lot of gratitude, a lot of love, and it's a reminder of why I'm doing this. So thank you. My dad's making a heart to me. So thanks for reminding everyone that I'm the challenge child. So again, thank you all so much for being here. As I was introduced, my name is Rana Abdelhamid, and I'm the child of working class immigrants, the founder of a nonprofit organization, and a community organizer. I was born and raised right here in Queens, and today I'm here to talk to you about why I'm running for Congress. For the past couple of months, I have been building this campaign. It's a campaign that is rooted in this district, our shared struggles, shared values, shared hopes, because I'm rooted in this district. Like so many New Yorkers, I'm the child of immigrants. My parents both came here from Alexandria, Egypt. When my mom arrived in New York City, it was on July 4th, 1992. And that was a few years after my dad. He told her that the fireworks in the sky were just for her, that they were New York's way of saying, welcome home. My parents were drawn to Astoria because of two things, the water and the community. The water reminded them of the Mediterranean where they grew up, and the North African community was our refuge, where you can hear Arabic and smell fresh pita bread, and where strangers didn't stare at the women in hijab and long flowing abayas, women like my mom. As a child, I watched my parents work every single day, and most nights to make ends meet. They never complained. They always knew it wouldn't be easy, but it shouldn't have been so hard, and it shouldn't have kept getting harder. Exactly a year after I was born, my parents poured the very little savings they had into a deli grocery on Broadway. They named it Al Marwa. I've never seen my dad happier than when he was inside that shop, making a living and a life for all of us. In the many hours I would spend behind the cash register as a child, I witnessed how our small businesses serve as the pulse of our community. My dad always said, our store is the community store. And it was. Aunties would drop off sweets like kunafa, basbousa, and baklawa that they would sell for extra cash. Recent immigrants to the neighborhood would pass by to look for housing, and teenagers would pick up some shifts to save money for school. Like many small businesses, it was a mutual aid hub, and I loved growing up in the shop. But one day, my dad walked up to an eviction notice on the front door. He'd never really missed a payment before, but times were tough. I remember him gathering our family for a conversation too many New Yorkers have had to have. Rents were rising, and we were going to lose our business. We had just 2 days to come up with $8,000. But word travels fast when everyone who buys a kunafa at Al Marwa also sees each other again the next day at the mosque or at school or at Astoria Park. And fortunately, our community had our back. Neighbors who walked through the door on those days would give what they could. $5 here, $50 there, even an envelope of coins. And they would say, this store is the community store, remember? Because of them, my dad was able to pay back what he owed. Still, it wasn't enough. My dad started driving a cab at night to cover the growing debts. Shelves emptied and the incense stopped burning. Eventually, we lost the shop entirely. And because of that same gentrification, we also lost our home. Over and over again, we moved 6 times over the course of my childhood. caught between poor housing conditions and more rising rent, almost like clockwork. Whenever we started to feel comfortable in whichever apartment we lived in, we'd be forced out by rising rents and bad landlords. But no matter what happened, my family and I had a safety net no one could ever take away. It was the moms, the kids, and the uncles who loved Al Marwa. We had each other's backs. Our community was always our safe haven. And after 9/11, that community we built became more important than ever. Fathers and brothers were harassed by the police. Our mosques and community centers were surveilled. And when I was just 16 years old, a man tried to rip off my hijab and assaulted me on the street. I fought back and was able to get away. Then I vowed to make sure it never happened to anyone else. So I did what my dad did. I built the community people like me needed. I took that experience of assault and used it along with my black belt in karate to create safety for my community. That year, I started Malikah, an organization to train women in self-defense. And what began as a karate class with 4 girls in the basement of a local community center is now a grassroots nonprofit that has reached 20,000 women across the world. I learned what leadership meant by watching my dad in Al Marwa and my mom and my aunties in our neighborhood. They taught me that when things got hard, our communities could take care of each other with the resources we had. That if we came together, we could overcome impossible odds. But over the past year, that became harder. Last March, like so many New Yorkers, my family contracted COVID-19. All of us got sick, but my mom, she got really sick. Over the course of a few days, her breathing got worse and worse, and we didn't know if she would pull through. This was a dark time for our city. It was a dark time for my family. Watching the news day after day, we made an impossible decision to keep my mom home. More than one doctor told us she'd have a higher chance of surviving there than at a Queens hospital. If things got dire, they said, we should bring her across the bridge to Manhattan, where hospitals had more resources. Fortunately, my mom eventually did get better, but the experience was a turning point for me, a wake-up call. My mom, my family, my community, we'd been left behind, left to die, literally. And political leadership was missing in action. As small businesses suffered and then shuttered, as immigrants were excluded from federal aid, as more and more New Yorkers got sick, went hungry, and struggled to find a place to sleep at night, the people who were supposed to represent this district were nowhere to be found. The people who were supposed to fight for this district weren't fighting for anything. And I realized this was nothing new here, not with Carolyn Maloney in charge. If New York is a tale of 2 cities, then under Maloney, New York 12 has been a tale of 2 districts. And she has only served one, the one that bankers and billionaires call home. She's been a representative in Congress for my entire life, but she's never actually represented the people or the needs of most of this district. She's never fought for us. Sometimes she's even fought against us. I know because I've been on the other side. I've lived the issues facing this district, from over-policing to underfunded public schools, from gentrification to jeopardized air quality, from housing insecurity to failing hospitals. And I've had to live the solutions too, because her leadership has failed time and time again. Despite what she says, Congresswoman Maloney hasn't fought for fair housing. Instead, she's pocketed millions and millions of dollars each election cycle from the real estate developers and landlords who make up her largest donors. And she's even profited from firms that evict tenants who can't afford rent. She hasn't fought for small businesses like my dad. Instead, she's fought for corporations to come set up shop in our backyard and replace him. She hasn't fought against the surveillance and violence that religious minority communities like mine experience. Instead, she's dressed up in a burqa on the House floor and voted for the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. She hasn't fought to end police brutality. Instead, she voted for the 1994 crime bill that destroyed so many of her constituents' lives. And as recently as 2017, she fought to get former NYPD Commissioner Ray Kelly selected to lead the FBI, even though he championed the city's racist and unconstitutional stop and frisk policy. And during the pandemic, she's held too few town halls and still refuses to apologize for her past record of linking vaccines to autism. Still, We as New Yorkers aren't helpless. We've rallied against gentrification and displacement. We've set up community fridges and fundraised for our undocumented neighbors. We've taught ourselves self-defense. We've marched against an over-militarized, under-trained police that disproportionately impacts our Black and Brown communities. But we've had to do it all without effective leadership and in the face of failed policy. We deserve better. We deserve to live free, fair, full lives. We deserve to live in safety. We deserve to live with healthcare. We deserve to live without hunger. We deserve to live in housing we can actually afford. And we deserve a leader who won't stop fighting for us even when things get hard, because they will get hard. Over the next 2 years, thousands of businesses will rebuild or they won't. Our families will find ourselves on stable footing or we won't. We have a once in a generation opportunity as we reopen our schools, as we reinvest in our economy, to build a city that works for all of us, no matter our zip code or our income, but only if we put in the work. That's why I'm running for Congress, because I love this district, all of this district, and I'm so ready to fight for it. Of course, one person isn't going to change all of this overnight. Congress usually doesn't work for working people, but if we vote for the New York 12 we deserve, not just the one that we've had, we can change this city and this country. Together, we will fight for housing justice for all, because every New Yorker, especially the 72% of residents in our district who are renters, should feel the dignity and safety of home. Together, we will fight for single-payer Medicare for all, because getting sick should never be a reason for going broke. Together, we'll fight for a Green New Deal and Green Union jobs, because we can't preserve our communities if we don't preserve our planet. We'll fight for economic justice, because we'll only have a fair shot at a better future if the richest Americans pay their fair share in taxes. We'll fight for comprehensive immigration reform, because I know that immigrants, like my parents, give their all to this country. We'll fight to ensure Black Lives Matter with real policy reform, like ending mandatory minimum sentencing and reimagining how we conduct policing in this country. And we'll fight for a pandemic recovery and relief that first addresses the communities who've been impacted hardest by it. Sometimes I imagine what things would have been like if my dad never lost his deli. I'll never know, but I do know that there's a better city and country waiting to be built by those of us who are willing to work. Imagine you didn't have to live paycheck to paycheck, if you didn't have to worry about healthcare and childcare costs. Imagine if our public schools were desegregated and equitable. Imagine if you felt secure in your home, if you felt safe walking down the streets of your neighborhood. Imagine if you could have access to those in power. We can make those dreams a reality if we have true representation. Representation for all of us, not just those at the top. That's why I'm running for Congress. And I hope you join me, because like so many other moments in my life, I can't do this without New Yorkers having my back. This is why I'm running to represent New York's District 12, and I need you all to have my back. Thank you.
All right, y'all. You heard it here first. Rana is running for Congress in New York's 12th district. We have a battle ahead of us to get this woman to Washington, D.C. and we're to pitch in. So please, as you heard, it's hard for working class candidates to get across the finish line. We need everyone to go donate what they can at ranaforcongress.com. Let's get this. Rana, you ready?
Ready?
Let's go! Rana,